morning we're in a L83 8-speed late model JK. We just did a pretty similar build. I had a video on it, so I'm not going to go too in depth on this engine. I want to talk a little bit more about the economies of doing an engine swap, because that dynamic is definitely changing with what's going on in our world. Most of you don't know, but I did graduate college with a business degree, and I firmly believe that we should listen to everything that the Biden administration suggests economic-wise, and then do the exact opposite, and we'll be okay. But here we are, and the reality is that the price of fuel has gone up, and what's not shipped by truck today? Engine components, vehicles, everything are shipped by truck. So the whole supply line chain, the prices have gone up. Recently I was voicing some concern to my GM contacts about the price of the LS3 going up, and we're receiving less components. But the reality is, these guys are doing what they can to build these engines for us with what they got, and their hands are tied. The federal government has come down with the labor shortages, part shortages, energy crisis. It's just going to trickle down to us, and that's what it's done. So what this video is going to be about is going to be about this L83 8-speed, because we can counteract some of these price increases with economies. And what I mean by that is the L83 is an extremely popular engine. GM is putting it right across their truck SUV line. So they're cranking them out. And when you crank stuff out in high volume, you have economies and you save money. And then they pass that on to us. The LS3, for example, is out of production, so they have to go to a secondary assembly line. And that's dependent on other contractors to send them parts like crankshafts. And crankshafts, as you know, the crankshaft factory had issues, they got behind, and that shut down the whole LS3 production. But for production vehicles, they got to keep cranking these motors out to keep cranking their trucks out. So while the L83 has been kind of overlooked in my opinion, it is a fabulous engine. It performs very similar to the 6-liter LS, plus it has the option of running the 8 or the 10-speed, where the LSs didn't. You combine a 5.3 LT with an 8 or a 10-speed, and you have 6.0 performance with a higher gear transmission, and still the ability to run on regular gas. So what we're trying to do at Motec is keep these swaps affordable, and since the price of the 6-liter has almost doubled on us in the last year or so, and all the other LS components are going up, we need to start concentrating on these LTs. Now these LTs are fabulous engines, and when they first came out, they were more expensive, for obvious reasons. But now that years have gone by, and we did our first swap in March of 2016. It's a long time ago, guys. That's 5 years ago, more than 5 years ago. So we have a lot of experience with these engines now. 5 years ago, we didn't. The engine, I think I paid something like $9,000 for our first used L86 engine. And the 5.3s were going for $5,000 to $6,000. So the bottom line is, now that GM is cranking these L83s out and we have some experience under our belt, let's start using them more. So what we're going to do is not so much a budget build. You guys know what our budget build is, where we use the stock radiator and drive shafts and all the other components to save money. That's not really realistic for most guys. Most guys have 35-inch plus tires. And let me say, we've been getting a lot of Jeeps in with 538s, 513s, and they've got 35-inch tires. This happens to be one. I'm not sure what gears are in this, but it really spins up. And you don't need to do that. You really need to gear your JK tall for an LT. I got guys running 373s with 37s that are happy. That's a good highway gear. But 410 would be a better gear, or even 456. But what you don't want to do is you don't want to run 538s with 33-inch tires. These LTs need to be loaded down. These transmissions are torque management based, and they want to see that load. If you don't have that load on them, they just don't perform as well as they could, and they don't get the economy that they should. So with that out of the way, we're going to be offering a 5.3 package and an LT1 package, because the LT1's pretty much in the same boat. The price of the LS3 has gone up and up and up, and the price of the LT1 has gone down and down and down. And now we're kind of at that point of diminishing returns with the LSs, where you can get better performance for almost the same money. So we're going to try to offer a affordable 5.3 package. What you're going to get is a new crate GM LT 5.3 engine, and that's going to be 2017 and up, because that's what we like to run. It has a 3-wire high pressure sensor for the fuel, and it's not just a single sensor with 3 wires. I believe it transmits 4 signals over a serial network. So it's a pretty sophisticated setup, and these engines run awesome, and you combine it with an 8 or a 10 speed, that's all the power most of you guys are going to need. Now, some of you guys want more, sure, go ahead, get the LT1, LT4, whatever. But the L83 is really what most JKs need. I'd be perfectly happy with this engine in my Jeep with 37s. So we're shooting for the low 20s, and that's going to include a new L83 engine, a new 8 or 10 speed. It's your choice. We're not going to support the 6L80. There's just no point to go backwards. Yes, it's a great transmission. However, it really was a Gen 4 transmission, and the Gen 5 engines were optimized for the 8 and the 10 speed. So we're going to stick with those. We're not going to nickel and dime you on the things that you need. You're going to get heavy-duty drive shafts or resize your drive shafts. You're going to get our heavy-duty radiator and a Camaro SS fan. You're going to get our Motec battery tray, which gives you a lot more clearance to the engine, cleans things up. You're going to get our upper valance, which is fabricated to seal the radiator for better airflow, and it just looks a lot better than the plastic one. You're also going to get a new AC condenser, because we like to run the manual condenser and get rid of that stupid trans cooler that Jeep runs on the bottom of the AC condenser that just blocks airflow because it's behind the bumper. So you're going to get all this stuff. What you're not going to get is things like interferences. We get Jeeps coming all day long, and they got dual S-pods, rock lights, rock cameras, roof racks, just stuff everywhere. Viper alarms, which are hacked into the system, which have to be removed. And obviously those are interferences. We try to give you as much of that as we can, but if it takes more time to deal with your accessories and clean it up than the swap takes, then there's going to be a charge there. If your JK is clean, these numbers are going to apply. So what are you going to get for a turnkey swap? When I say turnkey, that means you don't have to provide anything but your vehicle. We're going to provide all the parts and all the labor. These components are going to be new, and they're going to have a warranty on them. And our warranty pretty much mimics the GM warranty. If you go on our website, I think we have it up there. If not, just contact the office and they'll send it to you. So you're getting this new powertrain, new modules, new wiring harness, all in the low to mid 20s. Now this is going to be a build specific L83 5.3 with an 8 or a 10 speed. And the reason I say that is we have been supporting so many different configurations. The LS 4.8, 5.3, 6.2, and there's a half a dozen 6.2s. We've been supporting the 5.3 LT, the LT1, the L86. We're just doing all these different configurations, and when you do that, there's more parts, there's more labor, and in today's world, in today's economy, with the limitation we have on parts and the labor market being what it is, we need to focus on a couple of combinations that work well, and then use our economies to support those combinations. And the LT 5.3 is going to be one. The other is going to be the LT1 for sure. We're selling a lot of LT1s, and why not? If you look at what a lot of other guys are doing, putting in LS3s or 6.4 Hemis, those aren't bad motors. They're actually great motors, but technically they're not up to the standard of the LT1. So what you're getting here is not only a good value because the cost is less than those other combinations, but you're not taking any shortcuts in performance or technology. In fact, I would venture to say the technology is superior to those other combinations. If you drive a 5.3 LT with an 8 or a 10 speed, it's going to move your JK just fine. In fact, better than just fine. It moves them great. A lot of guys will get in one of these and say, man, this thing feels like a bigger engine. And it's because of all that technology. But you do have to adjust your expectation of drivability compared to the old-fashioned engines. If you take like a LS with a 4-speed or even a 6-speed, they drive just like the vehicles did back in the 70s and 80s with the 3-speeds. These LTs having high gears, direct injection, continuous variable valve timing, it's more akin to an electric motor where the power output is pretty much consistent throughout the RPM range. You don't have to floor it and wait for the engine to get up into its RPM band to get torque. It moves your vehicle at the lower RPMs. In my early videos, I said it's halfway to a diesel, and that's kind of what it feels like. It has more diesel-like characteristics on the bottom end, and most of us are going to like that because our JKs are heavy, and we want that bottom end torque to launch them off the line and pull them off-road rather than have to spin the motors up. So if you want more details on the 5.3 LT high gear transmission swap, just send a builder form in on lswrangler.com, or you can contact the office. And while our economy may be booming, there's definitely challenges right now for manufacturers and small shops like us to continue to offer our customers affordable conversions. Guys, I talked to a dealer the other day and they said they had sold a JL Hemi for $90,000. And that's before there was any mods done to it. I'm not really sure what those things are out the door, but I think they're $70,000 plus. And the reality is, a lot of us just can't afford that. We can't go out and buy a Mercedes GL or a Range Rover. And even if we could, we wouldn't do with that what we would do with our JKs and our JLs. So what we're looking for here with this 5.3 is the average guy. He's got a JK, he's put a lot of money into it, you get your suspension upgraded, you got to personalize the way you want it. You don't want to go out and spend $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 on a new JL and pimp it out. You want to keep your JK, but you're disappointed with the performance. So you want something that you can economically get into, or should I say afford to get into. And that's what this 5.3 LT swap is going to be geared around. It's not going to be a bare bones budget build, because we know that if you're out here in the Southwest and you're wheeling, you need that heavy duty cooling. We also know that the 5.3 LT has enough power to break stock drive shafts. So we're going to upgrade the shafts, we're going to upgrade the cooling. We're going to include everything that we think you need from years and years of experience of doing this without taking any shortcuts. The small accessory stuff like Aeroforce gauges, and by the way guys, we're going to be supporting that new Banks gauge. I forgot what it's called, but it's pretty cool. We've used them, we've actually got a few of them, and they're really cool. The Aeroforce gauge is kind of the old standard. I think the Aeroforce gauge has been well ingrained for a long time, so a lot of guys are more comfortable with it. It's still an excellent gauge, but the new Banks gauge is a little more high-tech. Maybe has a few more options, but at the end of the day, just get what you want. The Banks gauge is going to cost a little bit more money than the Aeroforce gauge. So my point is when it comes to that accessory stuff, we'll leave that up to you. But as far as the build goes, the actual powertrain, the cooling system, we're not going to nickel and dime you. We're not going to say, hey, we can do the build for 20 grand, and then you get out the door at 30 grand after all the options are added. So we're going to take this JK up to the mountain, and we'll talk to you soon.